know what really makes us mad is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Jalen Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose one year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. But this week's episode is a little bit different because we are being sponsored by one of our dear patrons. This is a Patreon-sponsored $10 tier where you get to choose the album that we devote an entire episode to. So, before we get into the actual record, I wanted to mention that if you go to patreon.com, you can also join at the $1 tier, and that gets you all sorts of free bonus audio. Wait, it's not free. You paid $1 for it. You know what I mean. It's $1 donation, and you get free audio, or you just paid for audio. Either way. This last week, we discussed the albums of 1993 in a bracketology. That's where we pit the albums of that year up against each other in a single elimination tournament. And pretty good selection of albums. Probably one of our best batch of records that we've done for a bracketology episode. So I'll say that Dylan and I were actually split on a lot of different albums. So we had to result in some tiebreakers to figure out what was moving on. But yeah, good year overall. Really strong stuff. You can also get access to our new release updates. I did one last week on the new record by Paint It Black, Famine. I also did a new album from the bands Rid of Me and Flying Raccoon Suit, who I mentioned it on that audio, but after we discussed Flying Raccoon Suit for our Skagast episode, the band reached out to us on Twitter and were like, hey, thanks for covering our record. It's funny to hear you guys talking about, we're literally announcing our next album next month. Because I remember we were like, what's the next album going to be? Who's it going to be with? And we speculated, we said, it's going to be on Bad Time Records. And lo and behold, the new record is on Bad Time Records. So we called it, it's a very easy call to make, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a fun little deep dive. It was fun. I did like a hardcore record, I like post-hardcore record, and then a ska record. So different tones going on over there. But patreon.com/punklautopod. And like I said, if you want to choose the album that we devote an entire episode to, you too can join at the $10 tier. One-time $10 charge. And yeah, you get to decide what we talk about. You get to decide whether to trick or treat us. We're like a week and a half after Halloween, but I think we got tricked this week, but we'll get into it. I did also want to shout out a friend. I've met this guy 11 years ago at my previous job, and we worked together for 11 years in pretty much the same department. Every step of the way. So I've been around this guy for such a long time. And during that entire period, he was like you, Dylan, trying to start a band and make some music. Like that's been the thing that he worked on for the last couple years. Pretty hard. And you could share the struggles and pains because it's hard to get a band together and actually record. And, much like you, he finally got it done.
Yeah, if you don't have like a bunch of friends in a music scene already, it's an absolute struggle.
Yeah, I think he had a drummer pretty good and like I think a guitarist nailed down pretty good. Their problem was finding a bass player and a vocalist. Like that was the thing that took them the longest to do. And they finally did it. They got in the studio and they wound up recording. I don't know exactly how many songs they've done, but the name of the band is called Pathologic. The style of music they play, they describe it as new metalcore, which I've seen a few bands use that term. It's I don't know so much that it's like new metal is necessarily a direct influence on the way it sounds, but it's almost like more of a throwback to the like 2000s style metalcore before it turned into deathcore. Because I know him and he's not a deathcore fan at all. So like I guess I wonder if that is what that term is throwing in there, but. Yeah, they put out a video for their song Swarm. It's a really good looking video. And yeah, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. People can check it out. If you're into like metalcore, that's the main thing you need to know. If you're into like metalcore and like the more like kind of newer styles of metalcore bands, like definitely up your alley and check that out. But yeah, Pathologic Swarm happy for him. I told him I was going to do it on the new release audio, and I forgot to actually do it on the new release audio, so I'm doing it here. So wider audience anyway. So okay, on with the rest of the show. So today's episode, like we said, is Patreon sponsored, and it is brought to us by our good friend Justin, aka Johnny Three Toes, aka Brian from Wisconsin. I can't remember. Did you ever do any other voices? I don't know. I can't remember. Those are the two main ones, but
I don't think he did. I think those were the two.
Did we throw out a challenge? I feel like we threw out a challenge of like, you can pick an album to punish us, to make us squirm a little bit. And we, of course, were like, also, we reserve the right to say no if it's something we don't want to. But really, our only objections would be if like it was like, this band's canceled. Like that would really that would be the main
moral objections really being the only reason.
Yeah. So he sent me a message. He says, "I found the perfect album for you. This is going to be it." So before we actually get into it, let's talk about some other stuff that happened around the same time. So this record came out in 1993, and as usual, we like to take a look at the other albums that were released that same year just to see kind of what's going on. That being said, we covered a lot of these already on the bracketology that we just released last week. So check that out if you want to hear us talk more about, Nirvana, Fugazi, Archers of Loaf, Bikini Kill, more in that vein. So let's move a little further down. And what jumps out to you first?
That Drop Dead record.
I almost threw that on our list for the bracketology, but I didn't know if you knew that album as well.
I don't know it super well, but I've heard it. It's really good.
Yeah. Drop Dead, excellent record. Probably one of the best crust bands. I guess I can mention a couple of the ones that I skipped over just in case like we weren't both as familiar with it. The Falls, Infotainment Scan. I don't know how well. I don't know that one that well.
I have heard it. It's pretty dancey.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I didn't know the Girls Against Boys record, Venus Luxure #1 Baby. I didn't throw that one in there, but Shonen Knife released Let's Knife, it's like the biggest Shonen Knife record, right? It's the most well-known one of, at least. They is this the record around when they actually toured with Nirvana too? I feel like it has to be around this time period.
Yeah, I mean they have a 91 record and a 94 record, so probably this one.
They toured with them in 92, it looks like.
Okay, so after the 91 record.
Yeah.
93, the early 90s is strange.
It feels like the early 90s is like searching for an identity to me, because it feels like the only like really big scenes in the like late 80s, early 90s are like hardcore. Hardcore's pretty consistent through this era, and it feels like the punk that exists is much more in line with, I don't know, like classic punk stuff.
There's a lot of skate punk.
Yeah, skate punk. Skate punk is blowing up in the 90s. Fat Wreck is pretty big by this point. Epitaph is big. Yeah, 93 definitely feels like, just you wait. Like it's like one more year and it's gonna be huge, but it's an interesting year. It's a lot of different things, a lot of different sounds.
A lot of garage punk stuff, like John Spencer and
Heat Miser, I guess, is in there.
Yeah, but Heat Miser really weren't anybody then.
Back then, yeah.
Especially not that record. I mean, that was the first record.
The Muffs released their self-titled album. I definitely was. They were on the backup list if you had any objections to what we did talk about on the bracketology, but they would have been one that I was gonna throw in there as a replacement. But yeah, the very first Muffs record. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to think of like what is 1993 punk, and maybe like excluding like hardcore or even like the weirder, noisier stuff that was pretty big around this time period. So skate punk, pretty big sound at this time period. We've got, I guess you'd call it like the Ramones core bubblegum poppy kind of stuff going on. The garagey is a big thing at this point.
Yeah. And then there's like, there's a Boss Tones record. Don't Know How to Party. But not otherwise a lot of ska.
Yeah. There's a Fishbone record too, but it's also like one of the funk metal-y Fishbone records.
Yeah.
We did talk about it. Emo core is very much a thing at this point still. For the Love of the Wounded by Split Lip came out that year, and so we've got here's a good one. So we've still got the Discord thing is going on. There's a Lungfish record, like we said on them. There's a Fugazi too. So it's like, I don't know, a lot of different things. Seaweed released 4 that year, which is another really good record. Kind of mixing the like punk and grunge sounds. I guess
that kind of in the same category as like the Heat Miser record. Which is like I guess that's like the Pacific Northwest version of Chapel Hill indie rock scene. Yeah,
it's an odd time too, because like grunge, a lot of grunge, the type of people playing grunge music are also would have been the most likely type of people to probably be making punk music at this time period too. So it feels like everybody's kind of diverting all their attention towards grunge at this point. And grunge has roots in punk music as an influence more so than necessarily sound. But so maybe it's because maybe that's what it is. It's one of those cases where like the type of energy and the type of people who would be punks were actually kind of like having a moment with grunge being in the mainstream so big. So to me, it's like a case of like the 2000s with like metalcore being so big and how much of that oxygen and like emo, like the fourth wave emo stuff, like all of the punk energy is being, and the DIY energy is being directed towards those particular genres.
Yeah. And there's shoegaze stuff going on too. So that's eating up a lot of, that's the UK equivalent of grunge. That's taking up a lot of the bandwidth there. I think if you look outside of what typically falls under the punk umbrella too, like if you look at what is going on in terms of like other alternative cultures, metal has a really pretty serious moment in the early 90s of like your death metal, your black metal stuff, like the really extreme stuff blowing up in this time period. And I think that also it doesn't seem like it would, because of what like we think of punks and metalheads as being so different, like tribally speaking or whatever. Like, but I think they both at this time would have appealed to a pretty similar audience. Like, probably the most stereotypical demographic for metal and punk is like a suburban white kid.
Yeah.
Especially in this time period. And metal is doing some pretty wild stuff right now. So I can see that drawing a lot of attention. So there's not a real, you really can just boil it down to two major, like skate punk and like your Bay Area and your kind of Ramones core stuff. In terms of what you can draw a direct continuation from the late 70s too.
Yeah.
Excluding hardcore.
Yeah, hardcore does its own thing, and hardcore like never goes away. Like there's never a period where hardcore is not cool. It's just usually what's happening with hardcore is like it's coupling more with some other things. Most notably being like metalcore being like the dominant sound of hardcore for a while. But yeah, hardcore has its own like timeline spitting right out of the 80s. So yeah, punk is more of like what's here, what's now, what's different. It's the youth culture stuff. I guess emo too has emo yet. I don't think emo is a youth culture in 1993 yet. I think that would be later with the next wave. But well, cool. Let us get into the actual album we're talking about today. So the album selected for us to discuss is Dance My Dunce by the band FYP.
Shut your fucking ass! I wanna hear what you gotta say. You don't gotta say what, you don't gotta say so. Don't need a reason or even try to explain. Don't gotta say what, don't gotta say so. Don't gotta say what, don't gotta say so. Don't gotta say what. Shut your fucking ass! I wanna hear what you have to say. Don't gotta say what, don't gotta say so. Don't need a reason or even try to explain. Don't gotta say what, don't gotta say so. Don't gotta say what, don't gotta say so. Don't gotta say what.
FYP are from Torrance, California. They formed in the year 1989. FYP stands for 5-Year Plan, and this is the second LP. It was released on Recess Records in either 1993 or 1994. There is a great debate online about when it actually came out, including from the conflicting information from the label itself. So some pages say 94, some pages say 93. I'm assuming one's vinyl, one's CD. That's probably the main difference because the vinyl and the CD have two different album covers. So that makes it a little trickier. I'm going to say 93 is the actual year, though. So the personnel on this record is Jed Shipper on bass, Carlos de la Garza on drums, and Todd Congolier on guitar, vocals, and xylophone. I went back and forth on the pronunciation of his last name. I think looking at the spelling, it's got to be Congolier.
Yeah, Todd Congolier.
I mean,
I don't.
I don't think it's that.
Conjuler.
Todd Collender.
I think I feel like you and Grant and always said Collinger before.
Yeah, that was me not actually reading the name fully out back then. I never caught the N before because honestly, if it's Kong, it's got to be Congolier. So hope we got that right. I could have looked it up. I guess I should have, but I didn't. The album was produced by Chris Hanna of Propaganda. So that's a very weird twist. So thankfully, we're not here to speak alone. We have a voicemail from our friend. I believe.
I have a note. Conjulier is how it's pronounced. I just found a clip of him saying it.
Conjulier. Okay. Maybe that hard G is. Maybe that's why I always thought it was more like that sounding originally. But cool. Now we know. Conjulier. So yeah, we're not alone. We have a voicemail kind of describing why this album was selected for us to talk about. So let's hear this voicemail from our good friend Justin.
Dylan, Justin, it's your boy Justin, just calling in. Want to say I appreciate you guys choosing a record that I suggested to you for your show. My kids are pretty young, and already there's holiday music and Frosty the Snowman, and we've completely skipped Thanksgiving. And I can't think of a better time to pull out some crummy punk rock records just to wash that pre-holiday taste out of our mouths, right? The synthy Paul McCartney song is going to start playing in all the stores, and ugh. And speaking of ugh, thanks for choosing FYP, Dance My Dunce. Is it one of those records that it's so bad it's good, or it's so, I don't know, it's kind of like the Troll 2 of punk rock. Like, it's admittedly on paper terrible, but there's a charm in there. There's an underlying melodicism in it, and it really is undeniably a punk record. It's a DIY record. Todd from Recess has been doing it for a long time. Admittedly, I don't think he even really likes it very much. But Recess is an important label, and I think it should be talked about. A lot of good releases from, Off With Their Heads Hospital EP, Rivet Head, a plethora of Dwarves albums, which I know is your guys' favorite band. But yeah, enjoy, don't enjoy, the good, bad, and the ugly, and everything in between. So appreciate you guys. Have a good Thanksgiving, and don't ever stop listening to Madball. Okay, now you betcha. See you later. Bye-bye now.
When we thank Justin for that message, and he selected this album and sent it to me a while back, and he's like, I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this one. When I initially saw that it was going to be FYP, I was like, oh, okay. And he knows that our feelings on the Todd Congolier family of bands because of our experiences with him over the years live. So let's see. Where do we okay. What is your history with FYP?
I can never remember if I saw FYP or Toys That Kill at Fest.
You haven't seen both?
I've only seen one.
Okay. So then mine might start before you then, because I have seen FYP live at Fest. I think I've told the story on the show before, but this was the year that Latterman was reuniting and playing Fest. The first time. I think they'd played a second time since then. And I remember it was like, oh, cool, it's Latterman. They're back. It's awesome. We're so excited. We're like post Iron Sheik and and Reviver. Like, it's like, oh, it's so cool to like go back and get these Latterman, go back and hear these Latterman songs live by the band. And so I was like, okay, well, I pull up my schedule for Fest. And I'm like, okay, they are playing at 8 seconds. That sucks. That place sounds terrible. And you can't see shit. But whatever. Who cares? We're going to be there. We're going to get in there. We're going to see it. This is during a time period where getting into certain venues was pretty tricky. A thing that comes and goes throughout the years, I've noticed too with Fest. Some years it's easier than others to get into the places. Mainly it's like who's playing in the room or what. But 8 seconds is one of those places. It's like it was like the second biggest venue. You typically can get in, but if there's like an actual like really big band playing in there, it might be a little hard. So we were like, no way we're gonna miss this. Let's go in here. We're gonna go in a couple bands early. We'll just hang out. We'll wait for Latterman to play. So we go in. We get in time to see most of the Careeners set, and we're like listening to the Careeners. We don't know who they are. We're like, why do some of these songs sound familiar? And I think either towards the end of their set, or either we figured it out or someone said something on stage. The Careeners is Grab Ass Charleston's under a new name. They just changed their name from Grab Ass Charleston's to the Careeners. I don't know why, because they just played the same Grab Ass Charleston songs. And Grab Ass Charleston's is a way better band name than the Careeners, so I don't know what the decision behind that was, but
it's more memorable, but I think Grab Ass Charleston's is not a good name. They probably just didn't want to be associated with like grabbing people's asses.
You're playing grab ass.
Which is usually not done consensually.
So after they play, we're like, damn it, we had to sit through another Grab Ass Charleston set because we've seen them before too. Like, okay, well, FYP are next. And we were kind of like, well, they're an old band. They're like well known. They're kind of legends, but none of us had ever listened to them or knew any of their songs. And in all reality, it was like Todd and then a member, Sean Cole, and then like the rest of Toys That Kill were filling out FYP. FYP is a band that had a lot of members over the years. So like it was a lot of the Toys That Kills people. And I definitely remember thinking at the time, well, it's better than that Toys That Kill set I had to sit through a couple years earlier to see Dillinger 4. So that was a positive. I have no memory of any of their music, what it sounded like. They played for what felt like a really long time, but it could have just been they have short songs, so it just felt like they were playing for much longer than they really did. But it was definitely like FYP reunion, Latterman reunion was like kind of the billing on this particular point at Fest, and so we were just like, I don't know. I don't remember hardly anything about it. It was also in a terrible sounding venue with like awful like view lines and everything, so probably didn't help why I could not remember any of FYP's performances, but then Latterman played after that, and it was awesome. You haven't seen FYP, but you have had to suffer through the Toys That Kill set before the band you actually wanted to see. What you really wanted to see was the band after Toys That Kill.
Well, I don't remember if it was FYP or if it was Toys That Kill, because both played Fest 12.
Okay.
I don't remember which one. It was in the venue, so maybe Toys That Kill?
Yeah.
Because I feel like Toys That Kill probably actually has more fans than FYP.
Do you remember what you were waiting for?
We were waiting for all because we thought that Milo was going to come out and do Descendants songs. I feel like we've told this story on the show before, so forgive me if I don't remember the order. However, I've told it before is probably the correct order. I want to say, though, that we went early because we wanted to make sure that we were in before all, because it was at the venue and those lines could get really long. Like this was definitely still one of those years where lines took forever to get through at Fest. And
it was more of like a processing than it was the actual like capacity issues.
Yeah. Capacity could be an issue. It was not because of the rumors going around that Milo's in town. Milo's on the ground. Milo's in Gainesville. He's been seated. He's been cited. He's it's like political intrigue, like spotting Milo. Oh, there's going to be a surprise Descendants set or something. Like, I don't know why we thought it was going to be like a whole Descendants set.
Yeah,
I don't know what we thought it was going to be.
That was the energy that year. It was like, Milo's here. Milo's been spotted. And then like I saw Milo just standing outside the 8 seconds talking to somebody that weekend. So I was like, well, he's definitely here. Like, so then it became this like, oh, he's going to come out and do a bunch of Descendants songs with All because the rest of the band's here. Why wouldn't you? Well, we know why they wouldn't. They're not being paid to do that.
But they're not. It is weird that he showed up for it though, right? Like,
well,
he flew in for that.
The theory is that they were checking it out because Descendants played the next year.
The joint.
Yeah.
This is going to be worth it for us to play. So we went to the venue. We go in early, and so you and our friend Corey correctly go see Lucero.
Yeah, it was Ben Nichols. It was Ben Nichols solo, I think. I don't think it was actually full Lucero, but that's the same thing. You're seeing Lucero songs.
Which I don't even remember what venue that was. The Woolly, maybe?
Yeah, it was the Woolly. We did have to sit through Whiskey and Co. to get to Ben Nichols, but honestly, it wasn't that bad. It was just like, I don't know these songs, but whatever. They're fine.
So Grant weirdly is like leading the charge for we got to get in there to see Milo play some Descendants songs. Which I was like, thinking back, I'm like, is he that into the Descendants?
I don't know. I don't know. He likes some of the records.
But he's like, we should go do that, but we got to get there early to get in because there's a very, very real chance that we're not going to be able to get in. Like, people are going to be lined up because that rumor is so hot. Like, it's a flaming hot rumor.
It really was like disgust. With every person you ran into, you're like, have you heard? Milo's here. He might play some Descendants songs with All.
So we go to the venue, which is the Florida Theater, which was...
I miss it.
I miss it. I know that year people complained about the sound being bad. It really depended on the sound person because it varied.
That same weekend we saw Sam I Am in there, and it was like, why is the bass drum so loud?
Yeah. It favored heavy bass.
Yeah.
For sure. But that's better than the grainy wall of 8 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could see, like, sightlines were fucking great. Like, you could see from anywhere. It was huge. It went all the way. You could go stand all the way in the back and see the whole show. Like, you could stand anywhere. Even getting up close to the pit, there was, like, a step down into the pit.
Yeah.
So you could stand above the pit and see really, and be, like, really close to the stage. So we go, and I want to say Lawrence Arms played. They had to have played after Toys That Kill. There's no way Lawrence Arms would have been before Toys That Kill.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So we get there so early for some reason that we see pretty much all of Toys That Kill's set, and it's like I have no idea what I'm watching. I almost feel like it was a prank. He was like, I'm gonna make him suffer through a Toys That Kill set. Like, it was just like, I had no frame of reference for what it was. Had no idea who Todd was. Didn't like it. I was just like, what is this? I don't know these songs, and they're not even, there's nothing for me to latch on to be like, oh, all right, I can get into this. Then Lawrence Arms plays like nothing. They play like only new stuff, like only O Calcutta and Onward. And like, even then, like only a handful of songs from O Calcutta that I like recognize. So I'm like bored to tears watching the Lawrence Arms.
The Metropole centric Lawrence Arms set.
Yeah. And then All comes on, and at that point I'm like, I really don't like All either. Hadn't really heard any All material that I like cared for or was interested in. So watch all of All. Yeah, and then you and Corey walk in.
We waltz in during the like last song or two by All, and me and Corey, we have big smiles on our faces. We were like, we just saw Ben Nichols play over there. We had a great time, and we just walked in here at the last second. No problems, no wait. We literally walked right in, and we get in there, and we see you, and we see like, I think everybody we know was in there. I think Josh from Late Bloomer and Spinning Out, like him and Sarah were in there. I think Matt Evans from Old Flings was in there. Some of the Muscle and Bone guys were in there. And I definitely remember like looking at all of them, and we're like beaming, and we see especially the Muscle Bone guys. They are stone faced. They are just like, they have been suffering for hours is what it looks like. They've just been like, I asked them, I was like, how has it been? And they just like shook their head like it's because
all the light has drained from our eyes. It's just like,
and it's because like no one knew all. Like that was really the ultimate takeaway. It's just like nobody knew any of those all songs. And if you don't know the all songs, it feels just like a lot of like just going on. I've come around on all, and I think even everybody talking about all was always like, well, I like the early stuff with the guy from Dag Nasty who did it. That was what everybody said. And of course, this was like third vocalist version of the band. Yeah. And like, this is before we'd ever heard Breaking Things. Breaking Things actually is a great record. Love that album. I still don't love much of All's discography, but yeah, it was just like, we got to see the last like couple all songs, and then it happens.
And then Milo comes out.
Milo comes out.
And they play the most unrecognizable Descendants song. It was something from the next record, right? I still have no idea what it was.
For all we know, it was an all song. They played this song, and we were like, what was that? Does anybody know what song that was? It was short, too. It was like a minute-long song. It was really short. I thought maybe, but possibly it was an all song. It might have been a Hypercaffeum Spazzinate song, though. Like, I think that's probably what it was.
Well, because they plugged the new record, too. They're like, we got a new record coming.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it was like, I feel like I spent 4 hours. Like, it just felt miserable. Like never ending. For not even a payoff. Like, honestly, an insult. Like, it really was like I really walked away from that like, I don't think I care that much about the Descendants anymore. Like, that was such a like fucking, we start this whisper campaign. Milo's in town. Like, they're gonna play all of one of their albums.
Like, what do we, in hindsight, it's like, what did we think? They weren't being paid to play Descendants songs. They're being paid to play all songs. I'm sure all was cheaper than Descendants. So like, Milo's not going to be like, do free labor, you know.
And then Descendants plays the next year, and we go see them, and it's like they take for fucking ever to start.
That was cold. That was Cold Fest too. That was Cold Fest.
Outdoor.
Outside.
First year of Bo Diddley.
Mm-hmm. They took forever getting the sound right. Like, they couldn't figure it out. And we had all already planned on leaving early because they had like an hour and a half set. And we had all planned on being like, all right, we're gonna leave early because our buddies are playing across the, you know, the city. Our friends and old flings are playing. And we were like, hell yeah. And then a canceled band played right after that everybody was very excited to see.
Yeah.
We were like, I'd rather see them than Descendants. Descendants played for so long too. But yeah.
I think when it didn't, somebody said they bailed on Descendants once they started doing the prop comedy. the 10 Commandments of all, or whatever it is. So that's our like, why I have never wanted to know anything else about Todd Congealier bands. Like, that experience has poisoned me so thoroughly against him. And I think I've heard some Toys That Kill stuff, like a song or two at some point, and like didn't hate it. It was whatever. Like, it didn't really connect with me. But there's just been like a deep seated, I don't want to touch that.
I feel like that was all important to get out there to kind of like to figure out why we would even consider this a punishment, why we would be like, oh, we're getting tricked, we're getting like forced to listen to something that we would never want to hear. You had to know that backstory. So forgive us if you've ever heard that before and you listen regularly, but it needed to be said. So, this record, I want to get into a little bit of the backstory. So, Todd Congealier, he is the only consistent band member throughout the band's very long history. Prior to FYP, he was a professional skateboarder for World Industries. Like, that was his company. And he initially started FYP as a one-man band with a Fisher-Price drum machine. We're already starting on, like, rocky beginnings here. We're doing a toy drum machine band. Like, that's one-man drum machine band. It's not gonna be great. So this is the second album by the band. By this point, Todd has actually formed a band, like a full band to actually play on the record. Recess is a pretty important independent record label. It is a very DIY label. At this point, though, they'd really only released FYP stuff, and then like the Quincy Punks were probably like the other like known band that they'd done at this point. Going forward, like in the 90s, they would do stuff by the Dwarves, the Crumbs, the Beatnik Termites, Furious George, who we've mentioned before. So like a lot of stuff we don't listen to. But then much later, Justin mentioned it there, but Rivet Head, Off With Their Heads, The Arrivals, The Bananas, Japanther, Summer Vacation, like all these bands like put stuff out on Recess Records. Recess Records is a really important DIY label and like kind of an inspiration for a lot of the Bay Area bands of Torrance. Yeah, Joyce Manor's from Torrance, like they're from around there. I think they owe a lot of, I think they put something out on Recess, I'm not sure, but they're inspired by Todd.
Torrance is in the LA area, not the Bay Area. Torrance is like South LA. That's towards Pedro and like the beaches, the South Beaches.
I mentioned the Bay Area too, because like a lot of the Bay Area's bands are very much in like that same kind of like that fuzzed out garagey vein of punk. Yeah. That's inspired by Recess. Like Lauren Records, I think, is from the Bay Area, and like San Jose, I think, is where they're from. And they're the person who runs Lauren Records was in Summer Vacation, so a lot of the Lauren Records bands are very much in that same vein. And Lauren Records is modeled very closely after Recess Records' DIY roots. So very important label, very important. It is too worth mentioning that like FYP, Toys That Kill, Underground Railroad to Candyland, and like Todd's solo stuff, like they're all similar people. Like a lot of people share a lot of band members, a lot of people kind of come and go in all these projects. So like it's a very active kind of like, I don't know, it's a very DIY thing. It's just to be like, hey, you want to play on this record? That's, you know, you're in now, you know. So that kind of sets the tone. FYP is inspired by the Descendants and all. Like they are an influence on Todd. That comes across more so in their maybe the lyrics and the like kind of like the attitude, because there's a geek rock element to FYP and Todd's projects. So that is very modeled after like, yeah, Descendants and even maybe Dead Milkmen to a degree too. So like I get all that. I get all the important stuff. I get the idea of this is just like, hey, he was a pro skater and then like he just decided to like learn how to play guitar and like do something. So like it's a purely DIY thing and started a label that was pretty important. So I get the importance of Todd. I get the importance of Recess. I get the importance of just being like a DIY band that kind of makes it on some level, like a beloved kind of project or, you know, series of musicians. So I get all that stuff. So I get it. I see why people like FYP and I get why they're important, but
it's a big but.
It's a big but. I did not like this record.
No, I didn't either. He said there's an underlying melody or sense of melody. I'm forgetting the exact phrasing. It's really underlying.
It's subterranean.
It's the melodies he's not singing. You're supposed to listen.
Yeah, so Dance My Dunce. Stylistically, it's very much a like hardcore punk record. Like it's very much in the vein of the late 70s, early 80s, like Los Angeles punk scene. Like you could see this side by side with something like maybe not Black Flag, but like the other bands that kind of ran in the circles. Like you could see this.
It has some, I think it has some similarities to like really early Black Flag. I think it has some similarities to some Germs too.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels so like because of what I associate with Recess and those like the bands in that bubble, like I expected this record to be more of a pop punk record, but it really is more of an early LA hardcore record, which is to me, which I think is like really interesting to see that happening in the early 90s. Like to have someone playing that, something that's so rooted in that so late is interesting. It like 10 years later, more than that.
That was my thinking too. I was like, this is very late for this type of hardcore, but also like too early for like any of the revival of that kind of stuff either. Like I feel like you hear that maybe later in the 90s or in like the 2000s, you start to hear kind of that kind of thing come back around, but usually it's recorded a lot better. Yeah, it's a very weird decision, but it also makes sense. Like he comes from pro skating, and that's very much like a punk rock, hardcore music centric genre. So like, yeah, I guarantee you he was like listening to like, he was probably still listening to a lot of these like hardcore records from earlier in the decade when he was skating, putting together videos or compilations or whatever they did back then. So like, I get it. It's the influence and the charm. There is a charm to the fact that like he was a pro skater and he's not really a musician. Like he'd not done music really prior to this. And he just was like, I want to do this, and just did it. So that is definitely something. He just did it and made a career out of it too. Like he's been a musician for longer than he was a pro skater, I imagine, So like there's some charm that adds to the DIY spirit of things. But God, it's unpleasant to listen to.
So tying it to the early LA hardcore, the other end of the rope on this FYP record to me is like, I definitely hear this influence on Dillinger 4 Off of Their Heads. I hear a little bit in the Ergs too, like, and the Ergs, there's a sort of like, it's a little bit of a rhythm thing in the guitar and a little bit in the vocals too. Like there's the FYP vocal style is like, it's so unmelodic and it's very intentionally unmelodic. Like, I don't know if it was a case of he just like in early attempts to sing realized that he needed to do a lot of work to be able to do it and decided to just go the other way with it, like intentionally. But it feels on purpose. And it's to me, I would describe it as nana nana boo boo. Like that's what I feel like he's doing the whole time. It's just nana nana nana. I'm singing a punk song, which I understand creatively. I don't really enjoy listening to it, but I understand what he's going for. I get what he's going for. Like it ties in very much with like the toy drum machine and the juvenile lyrics and the very Descendants based, like, it's got a very I don't want to grow up like kind of energy, like, and it's, which to me is, I think is taking that to this level is a very transgressive thing to do. It's very challenging. It's very challenging of like tough guy hardcore, which would be very in style at the time. So you have like an outdated hardcore band and someone who's just being like a total brat as a vocalist. It's not tough. It's even kind of like almost kind of like sassy and mocking the bubblegum kind of sensibility of a lot of punk going on at this time too, of being just like, oh, we can, I'm going to be even more childish. Like, like without like, it's not like I'm without a sense of irony. Cause that's something that's very like, oh, it's ironic that we're doing these Beach Boys melodies. And this is like not even melodic and doesn't have a sense of irony about it.
No, it
doesn't.
Pretty earnest.
It doesn't come across. It feels mocking and self-aware without being ironic, which is a really, really hard needle to thread.
Yeah, I didn't think about it too, and I like how you put it there in like the frame of time that we're in with the type of music that they're playing. Like they're playing hardcore that sounds nothing like hardcore. They're not trying to be like kind of cool guys like the Ramones core stuff. They're wearing leather jackets and like trying to evoke the Ramones and like playing like fast as possible, but also trying to be like we're cool, but like they're not really, because they are nerds too. Like really, if you really think about like what a lot of the Ramones core bands were, it's like ultimately you're all kind of nerds too. You're all more Descendants than you are Ramones, and I think embracing that like geek rock, like we're like them. And I think the why it is like hard to listen to and enjoy is purely just like, God, I hate that guitar and I hate his vocals. Like just it's this high whine, like whiny and like I don't know how to describe that voice, but it's rough. And then that guitar like is the same tone as his voice. Like that guitar sucks so bad. It's like the cheapest like amp and pedal that he possibly could have bought for that thing. So like bad sounding. And the drumming feels more like a choice. Like nearly every single song has that same drum beat in it too. It's just like a fast 4/4, like just that real fast. There are some times though where you can hear like some of the drum fills and like some of like the extra like kind of little things that are thrown in there. Like, okay, this dude's he is a good drummer. He's just doing a thing for this record. I think the bass is probably the thing on the record that I was like, I like that. I like how the bass sounds, but it's so buried most of the time. Like you really only hear it kind of like on the intros of songs and then on like the bridges or like, some random places. So it's like the bass work is good, but it's just like, it's so underneath that like disgusting guitar tone. Like, and I find it interesting that Chris Hanna produced this because like the Propaganda record that came out the same year sounds great. So clearly Chris Hanna was in on it. Like he was like, he knew what the deal was with this. I also don't know how much Chris Hanna has ever produced. Like I don't know other things that he's produced over the years. I should look that up real quick. He's only produced 3 things ever. Bat Sweat in 1992, FYP, and Clip Wing in 2015. So yeah, one of 3 things that he's ever produced. So yeah, he's not even really known for being like a producer. So clearly Chris Hanna's in on the joke too, it feels like. And he's got a snotty voice, especially during this period. We talked about on the Bracketology about how he is doing like a Fat Mike impression that he like now wishes he wasn't trying to do at the time. But so I get it. Like I get it. It all feels like we're doing a thing and it's challenging and it's cool because it is like challenging norms, but it's just not fun to listen to. Like I listen to it. I can't get over that part of it,
So the things, I don't want to completely brag on it. There are qualities to it the bass is really like a really driving force, and that's where I get a lot of Dillinger for. There is like when the bass is just really driving the rhythm, and the guitar is just like, and like he's just like fucking shrieking over it. Like that stuff to me is pretty interesting. Like I think at its most extreme moments, I think this record is is where I mean, it's really where I hear a ton of Dillinger 4, of just like the noisy, feedbacky Dillinger 4 songs where there's kind of vocal lines where you're just like, they're not even trying to sing. They're just like, kind of yelling at you. Like, and I love when Dillinger 4 does that. So those are the things that I like the best about this record. And it is a surprisingly extreme sounding record at times when it is going for those things. There's kind of a stretch of songs too where it's really heavy on that stuff, from like Knock on Wood and Fuck You and a Half, like all of those through Ian Stewart as a Crash Test Dummy. Like there's a good chunk in the middle where I was like the most interested, but it didn't start strong for me.
Oh yeah. So it opens up with Dumb Because I Said So, and my notes were woof on that one. But that being said, as much as I didn't like that song, track 2, Vacation Bible School, I think is the best song on the whole record. It has the most sense of melody on it. It has like a pretty decent chorus to it. It has the Yes, Jesus Loves Me part of the song too. Like, I genuinely was like, all right, I kind of like this one. Like, this one I like. But then they go Immature. Like, oh. Thinking Cap. Ooh, I think Thinking Cap is the worst song on the record. It's like slower and like purposely off-key vocals. I was just like, I don't like this. I thought Big Fish in a Polluted Gutter was okay. That one had like an actual like kind of a song structure outside of just like the play fast, play fast, play fast, play fast, song over, you know. I did think 2000 AD was also another like solid tune. Like, I definitely thought it had a little bit more to it. And I did enjoy It's Not My Fault You Like Air Supply, that goes right into My Girlfriend's Dad is a Vicar, which is a Toy Dolls cover. And actually, if you think about it, Toy Dolls are like, I could see that being an influence too, because Toy Dolls are like weird as shit and like real. They play super fast too, and they have like a real high snotty vocalist. And like, I think Toy Dolls have a better sense of melody than this record. But if you've heard Dig That Groove Baby, and like the rest of the record that has Dig That Groove Baby on it, you're like, ooh, it's a lot of the same thing, isn't it? Like,
yeah, a little. Yeah, it's a little more disciplined than this, but
yeah. So those are like the standouts to me. Those are the parts where I was like, I don't love them. I don't really want to. I'm not going to go out of my way to listen to those songs again. But when I hear them, I'm like, all right, that's not bad. Like, I'm within the context of the record, I'm like, I like them in the context of the album. I think they're the better tracks, but they're hard. Oh, they're so hard to get through. And this album's not even that long. It's only 28 minutes long.
Well, I listened to the full 33-minute.
Oh, you got the extendo version, right?
On Spotify.
Well, that's what I listened to. I thought it was like a 28-minute album.
I listened to the 17-track 33 minutes.
What? How did you get that? I got the 14-track 28-minute, and I can't choose the 17-track version on Spotify.
Weird.
Did you listen on desktop?
No, I mean, I listened to it on my phone. Pretty sure I listened to.
Oh, which cover did you listen to? Which album?
The pink one.
Oh, if you search for the album title, you get both. The pink one with the extra tracks. So that means you listened to Jerk Off, Toss My Cookies, and Are You an Idiot or Just a Nitwit?
Yeah, those didn't add anything to it.
So you listened to the CD version. That is so strange. So if you go to the FYP page, you can only get to the yellow 14-track version. But if you search for Dance My Dunce, you can choose from both of them to listen to. So that is wild. I would have also just not listened to those last 3 songs if I'd accidentally pulled up the other one anyway and been like, what's the last actual track? I'm stopping there. But
when you go to the album, if you go down to the bottom, there should be, if you're looking on, well, I'm looking on desktop. I don't know about on your phone. There is a little box that says one more release, and then it says Dance My Dunce, and you can click on that, and that will take you to the pink extended version.
I've noticed that on Discog, on desktop, where you can do that. I don't think you could do that on the phone. Yeah, that is hilarious. You're on a Samsung too, right?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up.
I wonder if it's different on the apps. like based on your phone that you're using.
I linked to the album off of Rate Your Music. They linked to the extended version.
I've done that before too. I've done that before where like I clicked the link and it took me to the album, but it would like show you different album art when you were looking at the songs, but the actual like, but you have the album that you're looking. It's a weird like, so there's like hidden versions of records on Spotify that you just can't see. But if you maybe link to it from a desktop is how you get to it. That's funny.
Unless you know the song. Because if you look, like, because it's weird. If you look at their Spotify top tracks, 2000 AD from the Pink album cover is listed in the top tracks. And so you can go from there to get the full extended version. But for some reason, you can't find the full extended version in their albums. Very strange.
Which means that Spotify is hiding shit from you.
Yeah.
So another way to fuck with the artists by like hiding the albums.
Yeah, I don't even know how you even do that through a distributor. That's strange.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the extra 3 songs don't add anything. I really don't think you missed anything.
I do hear Mike Yerg on here. When you said that, I was like, yeah, I hear some Mike Yerg in some of the vocal parts. Like there's some similarities, and Mike Yerg is another one who's like kind of embraces that geek culture thing as well. Mike Yerg never came across like, oh, you're a tough guy, huh? Like that a lot of the other leather jacket punks do.
Yeah. This record is really not trying to be cool.
Yeah.
It's trying to have fun. And I think it does. They had fun.
Oh, yeah. I bet they had fun. I bet they had fun. I bet that...
if you had fun, you won.
Yeah. I tried to find reviews and stuff written about this record. There's not a lot out there. There's not much at all. There is an all music review, and the review's pretty positive. Though they gave it like a 2.5 stars. They give every record 2.5 stars, I've noticed, on all music, no matter how positive the actual written review is. But I did pull up this line. It says, revered by the majority of their fans as FYP at its most punkest, Dance My Dunce is feisty and raw. A record that sounds like it was recorded on somebody's broken Walkman. And that is 100% what this record sounds like. I don't know what their setup was. Towards the Kill, like Todd has a studio now, and he has for a while now. So I don't know if this is just like a home setup thing to begin with, or whatever practice space he was recording in at the time. I don't know who would have. Nah, there is like an engineer credit on it too. So I don't know. We have engineered by Tony Ferguson, who has no other credits to his name. Yeah. So, like we mentioned before, Todd has projects later. Toys That Kill. They did the All thing, where they just named their new band after the last album by the artist. So they did Toys That Kill. He did the Underground Railroad to Candyland, which, now that I think about it, is that name kind of like...
Not a good name.
Hey, don't do that. Not the Underground Railroad was like a thing. Like, but yeah, just been around forever, putting out music constantly, just new stuff all the time. And then the drummer on this record, he is Carlos de la Garza, and he would later go on to play drums in Real Big Fish, and then also become a producer in his own right, and produce albums by Teenage Wrist, Best Coast, Bad Religion, The Wonder Years, Hayley Williams, solo music, and the brand new Paramore record that came out this year. He also produced records by the Linda Lindas, and 2 of the band members of that group have the same last name, De La Garza. So FYP, or the Linda Lindas, are Nepo babies. I think he's like their uncle.
Yeah.
So it's just funny. Like everybody's like, how'd this band get it together? It's like, well, they just had a guy who like produces Paramore records. Like,
they had a connection already. A Nepo off of a plant.
Yeah. It's just funny. Yeah. Really though, most of his like production work is like later, like newer. Like, so most of those records are like within the last like 3 or 4 years. So seems like he's really only recently gone into producing more. So, but yeah, that FYP would, they would put out a bunch more stuff over the years. They have a bunch of compilations of like early material too, and EP 7 inches, lots of other stuff. I didn't remotely consider listening to anything else that FYP did. Maybe they get better. I don't know. I didn't like this enough to even pique my curiosity on whether or not the other stuff is good. Yeah, yeah, not a fan. I did think to myself though, as I was like listening to this, I thought, is this the worst record we've covered on the show?
Ooh, that's a hallowed hall of bad records. We've got One Bad Pig.
That was the one I thought of. I was like, One Bad Pig is worse than this record. So I think that one technically sounds better in the like production and the quality of performance, but it just sucks. Like, it just sucks so bad.
The Murder Dolls.
Yeah, the Murder Dolls is up there. That was another one that I was like, that's a bad one. Like, that's just a bad record. It's not good in most ways. Punishment of Luxury.
My bottom barrel of stuff we've talked about probably is Henrietta Collins and the Wife Beating Child Haters.
Yeah, that's like bad for like content reasons more so, but yeah.
The Mains EP,
Gross.
First EP that we talked about. The Misfits Project 1950.
Yeah, just bad. That Genocide like rough EP demo thing.
Oh man, we've done some bad stuff.
Not as much in recent years. That Refused demo was pretty terrible.
The Deadbeat.
Yeah, that was not good.
Grave Robber was pretty bad.
That's bad in the same way One Bad Pig is bad, you know.
MX80 Sound. There's a lot of EPs that were pretty bad.
Yeah.
Those early EPs. What Happens in Hell Stays in Hell by Necromantics was pretty bad.
I wouldn't put that worse.
I feel like this is in a similar category to, like, in terms of quality, I have this pretty close to like Run Kid Run.
That was just very unremarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, since we've switched to just doing an album only, like, I don't feel like we've run into nearly as many bad albums like we used to.
So yeah, I hope that we didn't hate on this record too hard to our very generous patron.
Yes.
You can give us $10 to hear us trash something you love.
I don't think he had any expectations of us enjoying it. Like, he knew that our experience with FYP and Toys to Kill before were negative, so I don't know that he was like anticipating us to enjoy the record. So he did specifically choose it as a punishment for us. So if you're gonna pick something to punish us with, just know that if your goal is to punish us with it, we're probably going to be negative about it. So like, it is a fun way to look at stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff out there, and I wouldn't actually like hate talking about bad stuff more often. I feel like we just are very more focused on good stuff, but like, I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to like picking some like people should pick some like notoriously bad records and shoot them our way, and maybe we'll consider them for listening.
And what do you think? Are we getting a bad review? Is an FYP fan gonna come across this and listen to it and be mad at us for disliking it?
I don't know. What's the rating on this? Did we look at that? I didn't even bother to look at like what the Rate Your Music community thinks of this FYP record.
This has a 3.25 on Rate Your Music.
Really?
People really like FYP. People really like FYP and Toys to Kill. Like, there is a considerable audience that really likes those bands. Most of the people who have listened to those bands probably like really, really like them. Like, I feel like there's not a medium listener.
Yeah, I could see that. I think, I don't know. I think people know what the deal with this band is. So I don't think, I'm like reading this review too on Rate Your Music. It's a 4-star review. This came recommended by my girlfriend, who's done some time dating down in doom/hardcore salt mines. Okay. Whiny, sloppy punk rock, unsure whether it's too pissed off to laugh. Lead singer, skater, Todd Congealier sounds like Doc Dart's baby brother, but his thing isn't humanity so much as the majority of it's fucking off-royal. If you're looking for melodies, you're out of luck. Todd's voice is that fucked, but start paying attention to the way his delivery pulls the band against him, and you'll hear the greatness. Cover of My Girlfriend's Dad is a Vicar, and Big Fish in a Little Pond, and Kids Play Dead. There's a couple genuine epics. Either I'm going to punch someone or I'm going to start a band with a Fisher-Price drum machine. Maybe that is what it is, though. Maybe it's this, like, I like that. The delivery that pulls the band with or against him. So it's like at times where like he's like fighting against the music of the band. I do think that there's a piece of people who's like, I could do this. That kind of makes people like, I want to do something like this. I could do something like this. This is easy. Which it is. You can do stuff like this. And that's inspiring, I guess. Like it means that you could do stuff. And I guess as long as it's like it finds its audience, then it works. And FYP found its audience, and Toys That Kill found its audience. So like I am not in the audience unless I'm being forced to watch them in preparation of the band after them, but I'm not here for it. But I guess, I don't know. I think people know what they're listening to though. And no one's going to be like, I can't believe these guys didn't like it. I feel like most FYP fans get why someone would not like this.
Yeah, I hope you've listened this far.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it. Let's give it a rating. What do you want to rate it?
I'm going to give it a 1.5. I think there's a lot of, I like, it's something that I can philosophize, I guess, which is funny because this is not a philosophical band, like, which is part of what I like about it is that it's not trying to be smart. And I do really appreciate that. But as far as what I do, like the ideas that I like musically, I really just like the way others have done it.
Weirdly, I'm higher than you, and I'm gonna give it a 2, just a solid 2. Yeah, maybe.
Like I could probably be convinced. Like I honestly bumped my score up throughout talking about the record. Like I could be pushed to give it a 2 as well. Like I do get it.
Yeah, and I think getting it is like half the battle with this too.
Yeah. Maybe I'll hear it again and like actually really like it. I don't know. Or I'll hear something else, or maybe a Toys That Kill record. You know, I think, maybe some other musicians' input might be valuable.
Yeah. Definitely. They had 20 members over the years, so like they definitely probably change somewhat on record to record. So yeah. All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for sending a couple bucks our way to make us cover this record. I had a really good time, honestly, talking about it, though. Definitely something outside of what we normally would have selected on our own, which I think is the importance of these patron-sponsored episodes, as well as like guest episodes. So I talked about it a little bit on last week's new release update. My job schedule is changing where now I'm going to be working days, so that opens us up for the potential of guests again. So keep that in mind. We might not start really doing any until like the new year, just to like get through the holidays, because the holidays are busy and hard for people to do stuff anyway. So you might start hearing some voices though pop up on the getting close to the new release, or not the new release, but the best of the year audio that I usually do. My award-winning end of year content that we produce every year. So no A to Z this year. I'm never doing an A to Z ever again. Even though it would have been easier this year because I think I listened to way less. But so yeah, be on the lookout. Next week's episode is another Patreon sponsored episode. So we're going to do that next week. We can tell people what we're doing. We're covering Life's Rich Pageant by REM. So sponsored by our good buddy, Dave Brown. 1 band, 5 songs. Check that podcast out. Now back from hiatus. So you can follow us on all forms of social media: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, X, Blue Sky, whatever it is. Punk Lotto Pod. If it's got an @ symbol, we're there at Punk Lotto Pod. Except TikTok. No TikTok. We have a YouTube too, just nothing's there. But hopefully to use some of that in the future. I just won a computer in a drawing at work. It's completely wiped and does not have anything on it. Doesn't have an operating system. I don't even know if it has a wireless card. I have no cables. I have nothing on it. But it's like way cheaper than trying to actually buy a computer, because I can just buy those pieces and put it together, and it'll be way less than a new computer. So hopefully I'll be able to do some video type stuff for that too. So all right, everyone, thank you so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.